Hi, a very good afternoon, everybody. We welcome you all to the webinars organized by GemAtlas. Today's webinar will be conducted by Mr. Hemant Shah on preparing for a trade show. We are very thankful to Mr. Shah for conducting this webinar for us today. In case if you have any questions during the webinar, you can post it in the questions panel available on the right hand side. Now I hand over the presentation to Mr. Shah to take it forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal, and welcome all my listeners. We are at the threshold of the largest show being held in India for many years, starting about a month from today. And I'm pretty sure that most of you are very, very busy preparing for those few days, which will actually determine how well the next year, the rest of the year, is going to go. Preparing for a trade show is no magic, nor is it something that requires astronomical science to be successful at. What trade shows are all about is really strategy, planning, and execution. Why have I written it in that format and why have I used the colors is something that should be the first question that comes to mind. Strategy is the starting point, and till you have a strategy, there is no point in going ahead with the others, and that is why the color red. Planning is a stage when you start getting ready to take off, and that's why the color orange, and execution is actually going to determine the success of the strategy and the planning that you have done. That's when you start going and moving forward. Needless to say, if any of these components are missing, success is not going to be there for you. It's going to evade you. And therefore, to get success, all of this is extremely necessary. But before we get into strategy and planning and execution, let me take a few minutes to tell you why trade shows are so important. Trade shows are the most cost-effective sales avenue that is open to anyone in business. But as with everything else that we do, they are successful only when you use them properly. They need to be used so that every single thing you do becomes a cost-effective aid for selling. Traditionally, sales has always been where the manufacturer or the seller reaches out to his potential customers. But when it comes to trade shows, the process is actually reversed, because it is here that the customer comes to the seller. And that in itself is one of the biggest points that really make your costs very effective. And the audience is self-selected. Therefore, you do not really have to invest big time. And therefore, at a lower cost, you would be able to get your sales because the audience has come there out of their own volition. And research has shown that the average cost of a sales call is more than double that of a trade show lead. And therefore, it is a big savings, and we all know why. If you were to visit clients carrying your line and taking appointments, not only is the cost of travel a burden, but the cost of carrying a line can be pretty dramatic. Not only that, when you are actually going to your customer, it may not be possible for you to carry your entire line. And therefore, that one trip is going to be only a part of what business you really expect to do with a client. At a trade show, you have your entire collection with you. You have enough place to store it. And therefore, you can show him multiple options without having to reach out to the client again. Also, most of the time, the people who come to trade shows are decision makers themselves. And this itself makes a big difference. When you go to somebody's showroom, the decision maker may not be available, or he says, okay, first show it to my team and then I will come into the picture. He may not be there to take a feedback from the team at the same time, and therefore the process gets unduly lengthened. Over here, because the decision maker is present, more often with his team, the decision is taken much faster. And considering all this, the cost of conversion is 1/5 of a direct lead to a trade show lead. Trade show lead is 1/5 of the cost. Can we all imagine what kind of a saving this really translates to in our sales costing? And a trade show offers you standing and amazing marketing opportunities. It is a fact that you make more sales contacts in 1 hour at a trade show than in 2 days on the field. You can simultaneously cater to maybe 5 clients, 10 clients at the same time at a trade show with one single line, or maybe at the most 2 lines being present. And if you were to go out into the field, what with the way travel is, what with the way traffic is, what with the lugging around of your line, you would not be able to meet even 3 clients in one single day. And this is proof that trade shows are the standout marketing opportunity that any manufacturer can have at any stage. There are some interesting facts you need to know. The fact that a person is coming to a trade show on his own volition means that he is in the mood for buying. And therefore, he is there and he is receptive to your offers because he has come there with the sole intention of buying. Also, statistically, 54% of the leads that you receive at sales shows invariably convert to sales. The reason is very simple. They are all there to buy and they have checked out the competition. And therefore, if they evince an interest in your product, it is but natural that sales is a foregone conclusion. But do remember that more than 50% of the people who come there are really there to see what's new. What has been there in the market is already known to them. They are probably buying all the stuff that they need for their showroom from within the existing product. So it is what is new that is going to really make them very, very enthusiastic about coming to a trade show and visiting you. Naturally, the corollary is that you have to create something new at every show. Something, it need not be just product, it may be a new way of selling, it may be a new category of product. There can be many things that can be new, but that new is what makes a difference. About a third of them are first-time attendees, and therefore they may be around more to see what the market is all about, what is there in the market that they have not seen in their shops or anywhere else in other shops. And therefore, these people are also someone that create a lot of potential for you. Because these new attendees, when they see product for the first time, could well find something that is of interest to them and where they see a potential for growing their businesses. Between 10 to 20% come to see a specific company. But even then, it does not mean that these people are not potential customers for you, even if you are not on their list. And 90% of them have not been approached by your company in the last 12 months. That means 90% of the people who are coming there for you are potential new or revivable customers whom you have not been able to approach, whom you have not been able to address within the last year. These facts are very interesting because they all define why a sales show is so very important. The best part of a trade show is that it is actually a real-time environment. What do we mean by that? We mean that a trade show at a given time has the entire pipeline being represented there. Whether it is the manufacturers, whether it is the distributors, whether it is sales reps, or at times even the customers. So depending on the show, you have most of the pipeline available to you. And also, this is one time when you, for yourself, are able to gather hands-on information on the newest and latest development in the industry. It's not only for the people who visit the show. Even the exhibitors themselves are able to check out and get hands-on information on what is happening in their industry. And naturally, if all the pipelines are there, there is multi-level interaction. And naturally, that creates opportunities for you, opportunities to showcase your creativity, opportunities for you to grow. You could well, sitting there at a trade show, be there with a supplier of a potentially new product or component, and at the same time, the buyer who would buy this from you, and you would be able to then create collections, create new products, create new categories that are going to work. And if three of you all think it is something that's worked, trust me, it's going to work if done properly. So coming back to where we started, you first need to decide the strategy. The first reason that you need to figure out is, why are you exhibiting at the show? There has to be a very valid, justifiable reason for you to be there. It need not be one, it could be multiple. But that reason is going to determine everything that you do at the trade show. And then, of course, you have to figure out your goals. What is it that you want to achieve by the end of the show? Depending on your strategy, on your initial thoughts on how and what you want, you're going to set your goals. If you're launching a new product, your goal is to make sure that as many people as possible see the product, understand the product. And of course, for you, when you show them and talk to them, you're going to get a feedback on what your product is all about. And therefore, that's going to determine the future and the path that you are going to adopt to make that product successful. So every goal you set has to be a SMART goal. We all know what SMART goals are. We've heard it often enough. But what happens is that we invariably forget one of the alphabets and stick to maybe even 4 of them, sometimes only 3 of them, but then that smartness is gone out of the equation. So till everything is put in place, your strategy cannot be complete. You have to be very, very specific on what your goals are. And you have to make sure that your goals are measurable. Only then will you know whether it is successful or not. And of course, you don't want to end up feeling dejected. Therefore, always set goals that are achievable. The goal has to be relevant to your strategy. If it is not, then that should not form a part of your goal. And it has to be time-based. One cannot keep pursuing the goal in the hope that things are going to change. You have to give it a time. I do agree that we are not traders and we do not expect profits or success overnight. But at the same time, you have to, depending on your resources, your financial resources, your holding on resources, you have to decide a time that you will give, but that time is a must. Therefore, every goal has to be time-based. So these are the small things that really determine the why of participating in a show. What kind of goals can there be? It could be as simple as wanting to meet your customers and take a feedback from them about how you are servicing them, about how your salesmen are, about how your product is, about how your quality is. meetings. This is the time, because it may not be possible for you to meet every customer all the time or even get on the phone and talk to them. But here you have an opportunity to be what we call belly to belly with your customer and get proper feedback. It can be feedback about a new product you're launching. It can be feedback about a new website you're launching. But this is the time when you can get a personal feedback from everyone involved, whoever are the people you are targeting, on whether you are doing the right thing or not, and whether, if at all, you need to change anything. You need to promote your brand. It is at the B2C level, branding is a very different equation. But when you come to shows which are B2B like our IIJS, your B2B branding is very critical. And this show gives you the opportunity to promote your brand at the least expensive method across the entire pipeline. Because as we just said, people from all parts of the pipeline are present there. And therefore, you can promote your brand very easily at such shows. Get new leads. Everybody is looking for them all the time. And if you were to scour the earth and walk around to every place where you have a potential customer, it could be pretty damn expensive and, of course, exhausting. Not to say that you'll be on the road most of the times, and what your family is going to talk about is something that I've seen enough of. I don't want to even think about it. But this is a great place to get new leads. If you're launching a new website, if you're just launching a portal where information about your product is available, this is a great way to announce it to the world. You can set up small iPads. You can even tell people to just check on their phones and see what your website is like, depending on what the USPs of your website are. And you can shout and tell the world that, okay, I have this thing, here's my .com, please check it out. We'll be able to do better business and much more effectively. Renew your relationships. This is a great time. 5-day shows means you have 5 evenings to network. Maybe some client you haven't been very persuasive with. It's a great time to sit down after the show over a chai. Well, chai ki charcha doesn't have a great feeling right now, but over a chai, it could be over a drink, it could be over dinner, it could be just networking, sitting somewhere at a certain show. But this is the time that you get to renew your relationships, to catch up with old friends and set things right if they haven't been right. And of course, it's the ideal place for a product launch. You would have the biggest audience possible to see your new product. There is no better opportunity for a product launch than a trade show. So these are some of the goals. You would have to identify and define your goals based on your requirements. All of this could well be goals, but in some cases, some of them may not be goals. But whatever be it, whatever be your goal, you need to define them and set them on paper. Some things are not a goal. Okay? If you have a wrong notion about the competitors, and maybe that company is not doing well, it is not because he has not participated in a show. It is just that he now feels that the show is not the best way for him to grow. So do not go into a show thinking about what people will think. You don't need to worry about that. Let the others worry about that. You need to worry about your business. You are at a show because you need to promote your business. And that is the only thing that counts. What people will think, forget about it. Yes, affordability is very important, because if due to lack of financial resources or any other resources, you participate in a show which does not do justification to your brand, to your company, then don't participate in the show. If you do it well. If you can't do it well, then don't do it. Wait for some time. Or maybe you should find some other show in which to participate, but you should get the desired results. And then, of course, we come to planning. You have to plan on all aspects based on the strategy and the goal you have set. But this has to be balanced with what resources are available to you. You cannot de-link resources because, as we just mentioned less than a minute back, if you have limited resources and you take up a plan which is going to require far more resources, you're going to start cutting corners and you're going to do things that do not reflect well either to the strategy or to your company. So you always have to plan everything not only based on your strategy, but also based on the resources available to you. And actually, this is the best time to get creative. You could, with enough creative inputs, follow a very, very high-end strategy using really little financial resources if you get creative enough. And this is what is going to make the game a winning situation for you. It's all about it. It's like a game. Even in a game, you have a strategy and you have resources. You may have only 5 bombs, but you have to kill 6 people. You're going to figure out a way how to get the 6th one out without a bomb. It's the same thing here. So your resources are very critical. And therefore, because you need to be creative, because you need to plan in such detail, you need time to plan. And therefore, you need to start well ahead of the event. In that respect, this webinar is pretty late. You just 1 month to go. Actually, this process of planning should be starting nothing less than 3 to 6 months before the event. Because there's a lot of things that you will do or have to do, as we will see in the next few slides. And to do those things, you need time. And time is a resource that is not available in plenty. And consider all aspects in the proper perspective. Just because something that a competitor did worked for him, it does not mean that the same thing would work for you. Maybe your target audience is different. Maybe your product is different. Maybe your store is different. Maybe the way you are talking to customers is different. There are so many things. So you need to look at each of them in the proper perspective based on your values and your business plans. Don't try and copy anybody. You need to get the right help to study what you have, what resources you have, what are the challenges you have, what are the plus points that you have, and based on a combination of all those, you need to plan for the event or for anything else in life for that matter. So, what is your major investment in a trade show? It is in terms of time and money. When I say time and money, it encompasses everything. It encompasses your product development, it encompasses your product merchandising, visual merchandising, everything that you can think of that needs to be done for a show is summed up in terms of these 2 resources, which is time and money. And you need to maximize returns. And therefore, there are 3 stages of planning you need to do. One is, what do you need to do before the show? What is it that you need to do during the show? And what is it that you need to do after the show? And trust me, the most important of the 3, all 3 are very important. There is nothing you can ignore. But of all the 3, actually the most important, and this is where people get the biggest successes, is how well they plan their activities after the show. You did well before the show. You invited customers, they came. You met them, they liked their product. But then what? Actually, in any activity you do, starting the activity is the easier part. Closing the activity is the more difficult and challenging part. And that is the part that gives you rewards. Before and during don't give you rewards. The rewards are really in the after. At the end of the day, we are all here to do business. Just by having a list of the top 100 customers visiting you doesn't mean success. It is when you start selling to even 10 of those 100 that success comes to you. And therefore, you need to plan your activities for all three of these stages. What are the factors to consider when you start planning? As I said, the first is a budget. I have shown you what a typical budget might look like. There are travel expenses involved, there is the booth design cost, there is the booth fee that is involved. There are various aspects. What are the extra services that you need at the during your booth? All these things need to, but you must consider the budget. If your budget does not permit you to do all of these things, these are only the essential services that I am showing you. There may be many other things that you can do if budget permits, but you're not going to get a booth without paying a booth fee, or you're not going to design a good booth without paying for some design fee and construction charges. You've got to print and promote during the show. You have got to come up with ideas on how people will know about you. You're going to have shipping charges. You have to ship your line, whatever. Maybe if you're in that town, it's a little less, but at the end of the day, there is a cost involved. If it's outside your town, then there are travel expenses involved. These are things that typically cost you to participate in a show. And you need to look at the budget from all these angles. And always, you need to maximize your investment. From the various industries I have worked with, especially which are in the product of our category, there is a sizable investment that goes into trade shows. It can be as much as 50%. I would venture out and say that in the case of the gem and jewelry industry and IIJS, probably 90% of our budget for advertising and promotion is through trade shows. And if it is that high, is it possible that we can even think of not maximizing our returns when you're spending 90% of your budget on advertising in just participating in trade shows? And why is it justified? Maybe 90% is not justified, but if it is 50%, is it justified? Yes. Why? For the simple reason that you are getting the broadest possible exposure you can ever get across the pipeline. There is no way you can have so many self-motivated, willing to buy people in one area for a period of 3, 4, 5 days. Okay? And this is an opportunity for you to go out and tap as many of those as you can. It gives you the broadest possible exposure. And if you're doing it well, if you've branded yourself well, if you've taken the trouble to let people know you exist, it is the best exposure you can get. People will hear about you. People will remember your name, which is enough. It's to the widest audience, as I said, across the pipeline. And a trade show gives you more sales opportunities than direct marketing for every dollar or every rupee spent. There is absolutely no doubt on that. It's a no-brainer. So you have to do things very well so that your investment gives you the best return possible. What are the other factors to consider? As we said, just tap 5 ways to maximize your trade show ROI. And then keep growing those 5 ways every time you are participating in a show. What are the 5 ways? I'm afraid that's something I can't tell you because it will all depend on your business. But some of them are no-brainers. You need to advertise. You need to make a booth that is good. You make product that is appreciated by customers. You have something new to offer to the customers. These are ways you can maximize your trade show ROI. And simple piece of advice, find them for yourself. What works best for you is what is going to work for you. You are the only person who can find out what it is that will maximize your trade show returns. Yes, as I keep saying, one always needs help. Get help. Find somebody. Talk to friends you know. Talk to consultants. Get a consultant on board. Do various things. But you need to find out what works best for you. And one of the best ways to find out is talk to your existing customers. Talk to them and find out what it is that you can do to make you a better supplier, a better vendor for that customer. Once you find these 5, I think half your challenges are resolved. You have to then find ways of addressing those things that your customers or others are telling you about. So you need to have a great ROI, and that's one of big task, but it's a task that is 100% achievable. May not be easily. I was about to say easily achievable. It's not. It's going to be tough, but you need to do it. You have to brand and market yourself properly at the show. Branding can be done on the booth. Branding can be done on other avenues available at the show, like in our IIJS, we have all the pillars and we have hoardings that can be put up. You can sponsor some of the material that is being distributed at IIJS. Various ways to do it, but your branding and marketing must be in place, and people should know about you. If people don't know about you, they are not going to come to you. So please make sure that you are omnipresent as far as branding and marketing is concerned. How best to do it? That's always a question. I would put top of the line, creative ideas. If you keep doing something that has been done either by you or somebody else, you're not going to be unique. And if you're not unique, if you're not different, people don't remember you very easily. So creative ideas is the first thing that you should consider. Something as simple, create one stunning piece of jewelry which people will want to come to your booth and watch. Once they are there, then it depends on the capabilities of you and your team to get them inside. Once they are inside, it's up to you to sell. But creative ideas is for me the best and most important way of getting people to recognize you and remember your brand. Booth ideas. Create a unique booth. It need not be a big booth. It can be a unique booth. And that booth is going to make people realize that this company may not be big, but it thinks differently. And everybody loves a person who is not a part of a herd. That standout is going to make you very, very important. And not only that, it is one of the things that is going to guarantee you success in your business. Basic idea, stand out. Stand out from all the garbage. Well, no, let me not call it garbage. But stand out from all the other people who are there standing in the room. You need to stand out. Creative ideas is again the best way to stand out. You don't stand out by standing in a booth full of people dressed in black suits in a red suit. That's not going to make you stand out. I mean, it will, but not in a positive way. What you need to do is to stand out with your product, to stand out with your service, to stand out with what you do in business. And therefore, standing out is very, very important. You need to have pre-show teasers. Target your customers. I'm sure you do that in any case. You don't and are not capable, trust me, no matter what you think or how big you are, of being able to service everybody in every geographical area, in every culture. Just doesn't happen. So if you're not targeting your customers, it's like a swimmer trying to stay afloat. He's splashing in the water. but only when he targets his strokes and coordinates them does he move towards a shore or the edge of a pool. If you don't target your customers, you are never going to be successful in your business. And therefore, targeting your customers is one very important activity. How do you do that? Target your customers with pre-show teasers. You send them emails. You make phone calls. Explain to them what it is that you are bringing to the show that is new, that is unique, that has not been done before, at least by your company. Make them interested. Give them a reason to come to you. Once you have given them that reason, there are no challenges whatsoever. Do social media promotions. Today, promoting has become so simple that it's like it doesn't cost you much. I mean, maybe for the cup of for a cost of 3 coffees a day, you could have enough social media presence, which is going to do a lot for you. So, social media promotions are the obvious way to go. Announce to the world. Put up ads. Put up different kinds of announcements. Make the world know. Let them realize that you are there. Let them know what it is that you are bringing to the table. They are going to find interest in you. Therefore, shout out and tell the world what you are all about. And the next factor to consider is lead capture. I don't need to tell you about this, but you need to find ways to capture leads. And a trade show is the easiest way to do that. A visitor may not have time to come and visit you at the booth. You make time out and make sure that if you know he is one of your targeted customers, you go and find that 2 or 3 minute window where you can give him your card, business card, where you can give him that small printout that you have about what is unique about you, and schedule a meeting, maybe even after the show, but schedule a meeting. You do this, he's going to remember you. And don't forget, when you share your business card with him, try to ensure that you get his business card. And always carry a small diary and a pencil with you. If he doesn't have his business card, tell him to write down his contact details for you. That should work. And then it's all up to you. As I said, after show is the most important part, and it all depends on how well you do on following up with all the leads you capture after the show. And then keep making this list from even before the show. What is the post-show follow-up that you should be doing? And make a list. Follow up this, follow up that, follow up that. It is all about follow-up. The more you follow up, the more success you're going to get. And therefore, don't even think twice when somebody tells you follow up. Just keep doing it and keep making the list and make sure that things on the list get scratched out. Just making a list is again just the beginning. When you end up scratching out, saying you follow, successful, unsuccessful, it's not possible that every lead is successful. So don't let that unsuccessful meeting or lead depress you. It's just a question that you have not yet found what it is that is going to make him work with you. So keep working on it. Because he says no today, it doesn't mean you have to give up. There is no give up. It is just follow up. Even after a thumbs down, start researching again. Find out what it is that you can offer that lead so that he is forced to consider you, and then follow up. It's a never-ending cycle. So to sum up, what are the factors that you need to consider when you're making your goal and your plans? Budget, return on investment, branding, marketing, pre-show teasers, lead capture, and post-show follow-up. No hiding this, no straying away from it. But even having done all this, there are certain things that will make you a winner. And the first point that winners always do and should be doing continuously every day of the year is product merchandising. You need to get the right merchandise mix. You need to be selling the right thing at the right place. Trying to sell a South Indian kamarband in China may work because they have similar product. But trying to sell that in the US is not going to work. In the same way, if you try to sell VVS EF studded product in North India, the chances are that you'll only remain a niche player and you're not going to be successful. To sell that, you need to be there in the South. So you have to sell the right product mix at the right place in the right quantities. Don't ever dump product on your customer, because that at the end of the day leads to an unhappy equation from both sides. Yes, if you want to push a product, offer him some scheme, some plan by which he can try out and you can be successful, but do not dump product. Sell things in the right quantities. And most importantly, at the right price. I do not mean to say that you have to sell cheap. No, you must get value for money. In fact, I believe that more often than not, we tend to sell cheap because we do not put a value on certain things that are essential to this business. Design, product development. These are things that cost you. And depending on your product, depending on what kind of a positioning your brand requires to be in, this price can be pretty substantial. And you need to account for that as a part of your cost. So do not just sell cheap because the competition is doing it. Know your value. Know your assets. I don't mean by physical assets. I mean by assets in your creativity, in your various other aspects of doing business, the kind of service you give him, the kind of quality you deliver. Know your assets, know your values, and set the price right. But that does not mean that you overcharge beyond a point. There is this thing called perception pricing, which I greatly believe in. Right now, most of us sell as gold plus diamond plus labor. God bless you. That's not going to get you anywhere. There are times when you will come out with a product, when you'll come out with a manufacturing process which helps you better and gives you product at a much lower price. Take advantage of this. There may be times which you come out with a product which costs maybe 100 rupees, but the perceived value in front of the consumer is 300 rupees. Then you don't need to sell it for 100 rupees. You can easily sell it for maybe 150 rupees. But these things need to be understood. It is not a question of trial and error. And please remember, it is very easy to copy anything new you create. But that should not scare you. Far from it. You take advantage of being the front runner with that product, and then once the competition starts getting in, okay, now somebody else is doing it. Therefore, that perception that was there because you had a USP is greatly diminished. Revise your price at that stage. No harm in doing that. But you need to take the advantage of the beginner, of the first one to bring it in. But in today's world, things don't stop here. It's not just about the right product mix in the right place, in the right quantity, at the right price. Today's business is much different. Today, you don't need to be a vendor to your customers. You need to be a partner to them. And therefore, we have what I call merchandise intelligence. Merchandise intelligence is providing clients with a planning solution at the store level. There may be gaps in his inventory which you could design and fill up, which will increase his target audience. There could be gaps in how he is displaying. There could be gaps in how his sales team is trained. Help him with these things. Become a partner, not just a vendor. And once you become a partner, trust me, he's going to come repeatedly to you because he knows that it is not only a product that he is getting, he knows that he's getting a basket of services which improve his business. And at the end of the day, he's going to come back to you for product only if he sells what he already has. If he does not sell that, he's not going to come back to you. Now, why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this because these are new things that you can offer at a trade show. Yes, it doesn't always have to be new product. It doesn't always have to be a cheaper price. It has to be value-added services which help your customer to grow his business. The second thing about what winners do is that they do a very, very clever visual merchandising. Visual merchandising is not about getting the right props and putting the right light in the window. It is a very important strategic activity, and it requires a high level of planning and analysis. In a world where identical merchandise is available, I know a few years back, if you're walking the aisle of a show, you would move from one company to the other and not realize that you have changed from one company to the other because the product was all so similar. Fortunately, today people are working. Okay, let me put it this way. Today also, most people realize that they are moving from one booth to another because the booth design is different. Not the best reason. The best reason should be the product is strikingly different. So in a world where identical merchandise is available in more than one booth, then it is the layout and the presentation that becomes a key differentiating factor. And if you are a wise exhibitor, and if you want to be a successful exhibitor, you need to make the most profitable use of the space in the booth. What is it that your booth needs to be? As we said before, it needs to be unique and creative. Otherwise, it's no good. More important, the booth must be built around the target customer. The customer must feel happy when if you are into a high-end brand of jewelry and you keep chairs which are uncomfortable to sit on, it does not say much about your philosophy and principle in life. So the booth must be based on the target customer. Be original. Creativity will automatically do that for you. Avoid boredom, sameness, mediocrity. And lighting is very important. Focus your lights on what you want people to see. Have great props in the background, but let them be in the shadows. Let your product be in the limelight. And most people start a trade show with planning the booth. It's not necessary, nor is it the right thing to do. After you have planned what are the products you are going to exhibit, what are the new things, that will then determine your booth design. And then that will determine your aesthetics of lighting, show windows, whatever else that you need. So treat your booth as a tool and design it based on your goals. This is the best way to get your booth designed. You have to display your merchandise very, very nicely. If you have a winner, put it in the best selling place, the window that people will always look at, maximum people will look at. Merchandise that is regularly in demand. Don't spend valuable space up front for it. People know you are doing it. Okay, keep it in the back. That gives the opportunity for that person to look at all the other stuff before he goes to what he's going to need in any case. So put your in-demand merchandise in less valuable spaces. If you're testing a new line, if you launched a new product, make sure it is in a prime area. Everybody who steps by your booth should be able to see that. Put it in such a way that he is compelled to ask you what is different about it. And once the conversation starts, make sure your team is well trained to answer that with an open-ended question so that the conversation keeps going on. Naturally, the one on the left is not the way you would like to display. Look at the one on the right, it will make you stand and stop and look at it. That's what it's all about. And the third theme, most important, you have to have a show team. A show team has to have expertise in sales and lead generation. There has to be a person present who has technical knowledge in case the customer is asking for any changes. They have to be professional in their appearance. They have to have the physical stamina to stand, not go and sit slouching on some chair during the show. And they have to have the cultural fit. These are essentials, but there is a team, and you need to be able to create a team that is a winner. These are things for your guidelines, the checklist, promote events by emails, phone, fax, mail, distribute entry passes to your targeted customers, especially the ones that are important and you're not sure whether they're going to come or not. Spell out the benefits, whether you're showing new product. If you have a designer and technical team present, tell them that you will customize collections for them. And all this will save you trouble and expense of a visit to the factory or to the showroom, depending on which side you are. Before the show, I think we have talked of all these things, but there are a few things I'd like to get out of the way. Design mailers and get responses. Mailers where you ask for responses, at least tell you whether he's seen the mail or not, rather than just deleted it. When you receive appointments, confirm them. Reconfirm them prior to the show. Prepare your appointment sheets so that you don't forget. Prepare agendas for appointments. If you know this customer is coming, figure out what it is that you need to discuss. If it's an existing customer, you may have to discuss some challenges with him. You may have to discuss how a product which did well has suddenly stopped not doing well. Various things. You make an agenda so that you don't forget anything. Remember, everybody has limited time. And provide planning pads with your company logo. That shows that you are a company that knows what it's doing. During the show, be on time for every appointment. Please don't ever keep your customer waiting. Okay? Be available at the booth, especially at the appointment times. I'm not saying you don't have lunch. I'm not saying you don't go to the restroom. But if you have an appointment coming up, make sure that you are there. Use time efficiently. Very important. You can't sit and do gupshup with your customer and let the next appointment wait. Very important for you to teach your team to learn how to recognize the right customer. You don't want anybody wasting time at a show when there are so many people you have to meet, spending time with the customer who is just not for you. Be very, very nice. Be professional. Set up a meeting for a later time, but don't waste time over there being engaged in customers who are not going to bring you value at the end of the day. Be aggressive with open-ended questions. We already mentioned this. On-site advertisement is important. No eating, smoking, or gutka in the booth, please. That is the worst thing you can do. When you have a gap, go out and have a smoke. When you have a gap, go out and have some gutka. Go to eat at a time when you don't have an appointment, but don't do it in the booth. After the show, follow-up leads promptly. People forget. Don't let them forget you. As soon as the show is over, if nothing else, start with a thank you letter. If possible, within that letter itself, ask for an appointment. You don't get a reply for 2 days, call them up. Make sure that you're following up. Prioritize and take advantage of the enthusiasm of the show. Pick your customers. There may be customers who are very enthusiastic. Teach your team to read that. Teach your team to recognize that interest and make sure that they are the ones you follow up first. And hold internal review meetings on your design, your delivery, your QC with your customers also, because they are the ones who have to be happy with all of these aspects. Very important. It's not a part of this webinar, but one important factor for you to consider is which show. That can be a whole seminar altogether, but please keep this in mind. You don't participate in a show only because it's known to be great. You participate in a show because it will help you to grow your business. And therefore, which show to participate in is a decision you have to take. What are the factors that can help you to do that? Look at the mix of visitors there. Look at your market segments. Look at the costs involved. Look at the reputation and success of previous exhibitions. Look at the planned programs and agendas at the show. And pick the show that best needs your marketing goals at the lowest possible price. Then start looking at this presentation again, and you will know what to do to make that a success. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation, and as Vishal had said earlier, as Swapnil had said earlier, I would be willing to take questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and okay, I'm looking at some of the questions that are here. Prakash Mishra has asked whether he should sponsor events in conjunction with the trade show. Prakashji, it all depends on what you are trying to achieve at the trade show. If you are trying to launch a new product, and if there is an event where you can get an opportunity to showcase that product to the audience in a way that would be beneficial and justifiable for the product, then yes, you should go ahead and sponsor the event. If you're sponsoring an event just for letting the world know that you are there, I'm sure there are better ways than that which you could do. So sponsoring an event is always a great thing, but it should match and it should fall in place with whatever your plans and your goals for the show are. How would you recommend me to be creative while planning? This is a question from Pramod Mehta. Pramodji, fantastic question. And for a guy like me who is creative and wanting to be innovative 24/7, I could probably go on and on about this. But being creative is actually very successful if you do things that are outside the box but remain within the box. Right? I'm sure you're laughing. But that is a fact of life. You will be creative only when you start thinking of what goals you need to achieve and think of ways in which to achieve that, so that the resources that you use give you the maximum returns. So it's as simple as it's something you want to put a big a big advertisement, fine. may cost you a couple of 100,000 rupees. But there would be ways in which to show the world that same product during a show, which may not cost you that. Maybe you can rent holograms machines for the 4 days or 5 days of the show and let those holograms be there at a few vantage points in the show. I don't know how much a hologram renting costs, but I'm sure that rather than spend on a full page ad in 5 of the magazines so that everybody sees you, maybe this hologram is a better thing because people will walk by just to see it because it's a new thing. So creativity will be dependent on your goals. How to be more creative? It's going to be a tough question to answer without knowing what your goals are. But I just gave you an example, and that should tell you what direction you should be thinking. So that should help you to go ahead with your creativity. Question from Nilesh Sinha. How am I going to measure my attendance and presence at the show? Okay. If I understand this right, you are telling me that you are exhibiting and you would like to know how many people have seen you or noticed you and how many people recognized your presence at the show. One simple way to do it is by the number of people who visit you. But a better way to do it would be after the show, write to all your targeted audiences as well as to the leads that you generated, the visiting cards you collected during the show, or the people you met during the show. Tell them if they remember your company, ask them if they remember your company, and spell out what were your USPs during the show. So this will, if nothing else, definitely remind them again about what you are. There is no foolproof method of checking what is the impact of your presence on the show, unless you are willing to invest in an agency or some people or manpower who are going to take a survey walking around the show and check whether they remember you and your product. That's the best way to go ahead and do it. But I would personally prefer the sending of an email or phone call follow-ups because that reminds them again of who you are. So it's not only a question of whether your presence was established, but that in itself will establish your presence with the people you call up or email. This is from Sallah Shah. Is participating in too many shows more detrimental? Okay. Too much of anything would generally be detrimental. But if you're following the right procedure, especially the last 2 slides that I gave you on which show, if you're following that and all the shows that you participate in, do say yes to that, to all those questions, then you are not participating in too many shows. But you have to remember that you should participate in shows based on your available resources. In terms of money power, in terms of manpower, in terms of how many clients you can service in an exemplary manner. If you are not capable of servicing everybody, say you are an Indian manufacturer based in India, and you do not really have the capability to cater to, deliver, design for, whatever else that is required to customers beyond Dubai, then don't participate in a Hong Kong show because that's not your target audience. Don't participate in the JCK because that's not your target audience. So it all depends. You will frequently find that companies which are servicing various parts of the geographical globe have separate teams for each of those geographical areas. And that is because, if you remember, one of the things I talked about in your team is a cultural fit. A guy who is selling in India may not be capable of selling in the US or in Europe, but he might well enough be able to service the Middle East market. So too many shows is determined by your available resources. So it's not an absolute question. I mean, there's no absolute answer to your question in the sense that is too many shows detrimental? No, if you have teams and you have product lines which can service 3 markets, and then you take participation in all those shows in the various markets, it's not too much. But if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the capabilities, doing that definitely makes no sense. Mr. Krishandas Parekh, how do I measure the cost effectiveness of exhibiting compared with other marketing activities? The most obvious way to do it, Krishandas ji, is to see what kind of business you generated from the show, both with existing clients as well as with new clients, and how your business grew compared to direct marketing activities. I am assuming that other marketing activities is predominantly direct marketing activities. I do not believe that in today's times too much business is generated by advertising, unless you have a new product or a new service which you are wanting people to know about. So compared to direct marketing, it is show marketing, which is more cost effective. And as I said, the best way to do it is to judge from how much business you generate by doing both these different activities. Vijay Pawar, how far ahead should I start planning for a major show? Ideally, Vijay, 1 year in advance. I'm sure you're looking surprised. But the thing is this, as I said, financial resources are necessary. And normally companies work their budgets out well a year in advance. So if you are planning for a major show, you need to start making your sketchy plans, not detailed, but sketchy plans well in advance, so that you can ask your company to allocate that budget to you. Once that is done, a lot of times you don't even get a good location in a show unless you're booked well in advance. So that is another reason why you need to book and think of well in advance. Also, the actual planning should start, I would believe, roughly 6 months before. That should give you enough time, enough leeway, enough head time to make sure that all the components of your plan are taken care of in a good, timely manner, as well as in good quality. Quality takes time. I hope that answers your question, Vijay. Pankaj Gilitwala, what are good guerrilla marketing techniques for IIJS? I have my own diamond jewelry manufacturer. Well, in today's times, guerrilla tactics don't really work for the simple reason that in today's time, before you start working with a customer, you really want to understand and know about your customer in pretty much a lot of detail. But all said and done, the best way to attract customers is by being creative and doing things that others don't do. So as I said, you might come out with a collection, and of that collection, you make one humongous piece, okay, which is where the size is obviously, say you make a 2-foot ring, okay, of one of those, just to showcase the design or to showcase the whatever is new about that product in a more detailed manner. People are going to come and look at it. Or as I said, put up a hologram. People are going to come and look at it. So rather than just going in for good guerrilla marketing techniques, I think these kind of creative techniques would hold you in better stead. This is from Dev Kothari. What is the advisal method of doing follow-up? We have tried calling and following up with our visitors and found that people feel irritated by calls. Okay, I quite agree with you on this. So, as I said, the first thing you should do is an email. If you don't get responses to the email, then you can try calling up. But begin your calling not on the person's mobile number, but on the landline of the office or the shop, because then that call gets filtered and you are not disturbing him at a time when he is busy with some other work. Okay, so you have to be considerate. If he does not pick up your phone or he does not come on the this thing, maybe send him another email saying that you had tried calling him up, but he was busy at that time. And could you please indicate a good time to talk to you? If that still doesn't work, maybe then send an SMS saying that you are so and so, this is your number, from which company, and that you had met at the show and you've been trying to get in touch with him, but unsuccessfully, and that you would like to visit him sometime. Can he suggest what is a good time? It's a question of follow-up. As I said, all leads are not always successful. Maybe after doing everything, that person still does not respond to you. Whenever you are in that area, try making a cold call. Maybe he sees you, maybe he doesn't. But that's the way it works. You would have to keep doing that. Okay, Shivram, I see your question is about guerrilla marketing again. Pleasure to have you here. I'm honored that you are there in the audience. Shivram, as I said, guerrilla marketing requires a completely different kind of strategy from what we've been talking about here. We are right now focusing on trade shows. Maybe a good idea would be to do a webinar on guerrilla marketing, and we will then look at it. But I do believe that a trade show is not about guerrilla marketing, and therefore I would definitely go the way I have been speaking of rather than guerrilla marketing when it comes to a trade show. This one is from Krishandas Parekh. What is the key advice for successful exhibiting? Krishandas ji, this is all I have been talking about since 4 o'clock today. And if you have still more questions, then you need to be more specific. Okay. Shivram, I got your corollary so that they can come to our booth. Again, here, I would still go by what I said, is that create some kind of a visual presentation, as I said, and disproportionate piece of jewelry, maybe a hologram of the jewelry, various ways in which a person would be compelled to think, chal yaar jaake dekh ke to aate hai. Or make a booth that is so unique. I have successfully done that, Shivram. I think I'm the only one till today who has won a Best Booth award with just a size of 2 booths. That was when we had launched man-made diamonds under the name of Diamande. And we had our booth designed, which was truly unique. Maybe you can Google it and check also Diamande booth if it is there somewhere. I have never Googled it. But I know people came by just to look at the booth. Okay, it was designed by a non-traditional designer, Dilip Chhabaria, who is used to designing cars. And if you look at the booth, you will realize that it is a car enthusiast who has designed that booth. But that made us stand out. Okay, so there are ways that you do it. And as I said, we will talk of guerrilla marketing at a later date, and we'll work on that. Prakash Mishra again, what really matters when it comes to stand location, layout, and design? प्रकाश जी, ये जवाब देने के लिए आपको कौन सा शो में भाग लेना है, आप क्यों भाग लेते हैं, वो सब समझना बहुत जरूरी है. It is not a question of making a blanket decision, but by and large, thumb rule would state that the stand location should be such where maximum number of people are bound to pass by for whatever reason. Okay, maybe for you it's good enough to be near the entrance to the food area. Of course, ideal is when he enters the show, so you're the first one he looks at. So it all depends on, but again, that is going to depend on what it is that your goals are and what it is that you are exhibiting. So if you have a great new product line, okay, I would personally not go in for the booth which is right at the entrance. Of course, nowadays at IIJS you don't have the choice. Once you get a booth, you are stuck with it. If you are not keeping the same one, then you don't know where you or what kind of booth you will get. So all this doesn't really work. But therefore, you make those things work within your booth. And as I mentioned during my presentation, your most attractive product should be kept in a prime position in the booth. Your regular bread and butter items, which everybody needs all the time, should be kept at the end of the booth so that people pass through and look at everything else before going there. So the booth location is not going to be something that is always within your control. The layout and design definitely has to depend on your plan and goals and what it is, the key reasons why you are there. So if you don't have anything new, but you just have a standard product, then your layout and design of the booth is going to be different from then when you have something. If you have something special, you're going to create a space within the booth that is going to be able to help you to showcase that something special. So it all depends on your goals and what is it that you want to achieve at the show. So it's really very, very different and difficult to answer in a common stance. This one is from Viprika Jain. The gems and jewelry professionals who are unable to participate in trade show, how will they be able to promote their business? Well, there are smaller trade shows, Viprika. There are other ways of doing it, which obviously people have been following. People take hotel suites or hotel rooms in hotels nearby the venue. There are other shows that happen simultaneously. People try to find space in that. But it's like this. You got to be creative, and you got to find out ways of doing that. And there are plenty of ways that one can think of. It all depends on the kind of product and what it is that you are really wanting to sell. Maybe if you are not able to get a booth, take up advertising within the show where you are prominently visible and mention that you are not at the show and that you are at the hotel. And if your product and if your visual advertisement that you are doing is good enough, attractive enough for people to get hooked, they will definitely come and see you. Nilesh Sinha again, how do I compute exhibit ROI? I think I answered that question when somebody else had asked me the question about how does he determine his success at the thing. It all depends on the business that you generate at the show, how many new contacts and how many new leads you got and what of those leads turned out successful. So ROI is not always determinable right immediately after the show. It could take you as much as 2 or 3 months to really determine a valid ROI or a rational ROI, but that's the way you would do it. Viprika Jain again, how can we use our booth to draw in more customers in the future? I think we answered that already, Viprika, and the whole presentation was all about that. Pramod Mehta, what are your suggestions for visual merchandising for jewelry? It depends on the product, Pramodji. There is no one answer to it. I am definitely of the opinion that by and large, less is more. So I don't believe in stocking up a window with 20 different rings. But if there is a collection you made which is based on some kind of a theme, I would put 3 or 4 pieces which are very well merchandised, which are very well displayed, and the surrounding of the window inside is complementing what that collection is all about. Okay, so there are different ways of merchandising depending on the product. If you are doing wedding bands, there's a different way to do it. If you are doing big necklaces, there's a different way to do it. So there is no one answer to this. And my recommendation is that it is better to go in for advice and help from some professional visual merchandisers, because they know what it's all about. Karishma Desai. Hi, Hemant sir. The session was amazing. Thank you, Karishma. Appreciate your compliments. How can we sell more effectively the services we offer on the spot? I am a little confused, but I would assume that you are talking of the value-added services that your company offers to customers. And how can we sell more effectively is that you have to tie up all of this as a package. Okay, so once you have tied it up as a package, it is then that the consumer realizes what benefits he is getting by buying from you. And once those benefits are something that he thinks are going to really seriously bring value to him, then it is very easy for him to see and work with you. I hope that answers your question, Karishma. We spoke about products, some suggestions about services. Okay. There can be plenty of services you offer. The most obvious ones being offered right now are not the ones that I hoot for. Okay, the most obvious ones are longer terms, cheaper pricing, consignment. I don't believe these are really value-added services. These are actually services offered by people who really have nothing special to offer. Leave aside nothing special to offer, they don't even have anything special that they think of. So these are not the kind of services that I would think. I did mention a few things, as you said, if you heard my whole presentation, things like helping to train their sales team so that they understand product better, helping them the layout of their product within the showcases, within their retail shops. So these are value-added services. There are plenty of these you can think. And customizing these services for each of your customers is actually the best way to do it. Okay, so what services to offer would actually depend on what your customer needs, because the services should fulfill a need. If it doesn't fulfill a need, what good is it? So I hope that answers your question. Our products keep changing. How can I keep the booth relevant despite changing products and services? Prakash ji, I am a little, your products keep changing. Do you mean in terms of design, or do you mean in terms of the product itself? Because if you are a jewelry manufacturer, then you're still manufacturing jewelry. It's just that you will come out with new concepts and new collections. So for your booth to be relevant, one thing is the internal layout of your booth should be such that it takes care of what it is that you are emphasizing on and promoting for that particular show. Okay, a booth, generally the external walls are more or less permanent, but making small changes inside the booth should not always be a big challenge. The external walls therefore have to be designed in such a way that they are not only something that you can use for a long time, but something that you can use under many different scenarios. The inside of the booth, as I said, has to keep changing depending on your product and services. Supposing this year you're launching a new product, so you might want it somewhere near the entrance or do something in the prime spot so that people see it. But the next year, you're not really launching a new product, you're launching a new service. Therefore, naturally, that central area becomes less relevant. So you would have to think of how that service is supposed to or going to help your customers. And once you have that figured out, then you are going to find out ways by which you can convey that message so that the customer knows what the value-added service is going to bring to him. And there are plenty of ways in which you can do it depending on the service. Okay, supposing the central area where your prime product used to be is unmovable. It still has to remain there. Maybe you can create a nice revolving, piece of art which depicts the stories and the expectations and deliverables of the service. Okay, could be done. So there are various ways in which you can keep your booth relevant. It's a question of what it is that you want to convey to the customers. Any low-cost marketing, Hemant, again from Shivram. Many a manufacturer cannot advertise, and retailers tend to come to the store looking for. Shivram, there are so many ways of low-cost advertising today that really works wonders. And it's as I said, it's not always about spending big money. It's about being creative. For me, the key word is creativity and innovation. Depending on the product, I can think of so many different ways in which to promote the product so that it becomes relevant. Okay. Let me just think on my feet here. Okay, it's not that I've really given it thought, but I'm just like thinking of say wedding bands for him and her. Okay, a simple way to do it would be that you advertise a very simple thing, which is by say SMS messages. I think there is a provision, like I'm specifically referring to the IIJS show, that whenever somebody enters this thing, he gets a message saying welcome to IIJS or whatever. If that kind of a facility is available and if it is economically viable for the person who wishes to advertise, let them tell them that there is a contest going on at your booth by which they will get a free ring. Okay. Now at your booth, you display the men version of that ring. And then you set up just 3 or 4 clues. Don't make it into a big treasure hunt, but set up 3 or 4 clues. The first one he picks up from your booth, and he has to go and find out where the female ring is. And the first person to find it out will get the ring. Okay. So as I said, it's just a question of being creative. It's a question of being innovative. I think for every challenge, we could find a solution. You're welcome, Shivram. For a new and first-time trade show, any recommended strategies to draw serious buyers? It will all depend on what it is you want to achieve. No strategy can be drawn without knowing your business. So there is no answer to this except in the presentation that I made. And if you go through it, it will tell you to first define your goals, to define your expectations, define what you want to achieve at the show. It's not only about getting buyers. If I send you all the buyers in the world who don't want Indian jewelry and you are only manufacturing Indian jewelry, that a whole list of gang of buyers coming to you are going to be worthless. That's it. Yeah. I think that completes the questions. I have no more questions pending. I would again like to thank every one of you all who has been listening to my voice. I'm sure you're bored by now, but who's been listening to my voice for the last 90 minutes, 91 minutes to be precise. I hope it has been fun for you. I hope it has been enjoyable. I think GemAtlas will be conducting some kind of a survey or a feedback on the webinar. Please do answer them, and if you have any suggestions on how I can make myself more interesting, I'd be more than happy to hear it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much once again, Mr. Shah, for conducting this very informative webinar for us today. Thank you all participants for being such an active audience for today's webinar. It was a pleasure presenting the webinar to you all. Thank you and have a great day ahead. With this, we end the session. Thank you, everybody.